These are not the legends of World War II armor. These are the steel failures, machines that looked terrifying on parades and in drawings, but turned into burning scrap once they met real mud, real logistics, and real enemy guns. From multi-turreted land battleships to improvised boxes on tractor chassis, each one shows what happens when ideas and doctrine run ahead of reality on the battlefield. Bob Semple tank. This improvised tank started as a desperate idea. Take a farm tractor, bolt on corrugated metal sheets, add machine guns, and hope it scares an invader. The result was a tall, unstable box with almost no real armor, bad fields of fire, and painfully cramped crew positions. The underpowered chassis struggled with the weight, making the vehicle slow and clumsy on rough ground. Tests showed it was more dangerous to the men inside than to any enemy, shaking violently and barely managing obstacles. It never went to war and survived in history as a moving joke, a symbol of how improvisation without proper engineering becomes comedy, not combat power. Panzer Kampfwagen 8 Maus. This super-heavy monster was built around the fantasy of an invincible fortress tank, nearly 200 tons of armor and a huge gun combination capable of defeating any known enemy vehicle. In reality, the sheer mass created endless problems. Most bridges could not carry it, rail transport was a nightmare, and ground pressure limited where it could even drive. The drivetrain struggled just to move the bulk, and fuel consumption would have been catastrophic on a real front. Only prototypes were finished and never saw true combat. As a field weapon, it would have been a slow, obvious target for bombers and artillery. It stands as the ultimate symbol of engineering hubris detached from the real needs of mobile warfare. Covenanter. This British cruiser tank was designed to be low, fast, and modern, but its internal layout and cooling system turned it into a reliability disaster. Radiators were buried in a way that made airflow and maintenance difficult, causing chronic overheating during hard driving or in warm weather. On test ranges, it broke down so frequently that commanders lost faith in its ability to survive real campaigns, especially in hot environments like North Africa. Armor and armament were only average, so there was no unique strength to justify the headaches. Thousands were built but restricted to training duties at home, making it one of the rare tanks mass-produced specifically to never see combat. TOG-1. These prototypes tried to refight World War I in a World War II body. Extremely long hulls, enormous weight, and a concept optimized for trench lines and shell-pocked mud rather than fast armored thrusts. Designers imagined a machine crawling over craters and wire, supporting infantry in slow advances. But by the time they moved under their own power, the real war had shifted to high-speed operations with deep penetrations and rapid redeployment. Their size made transport, turning, and bridge crossing deeply problematic. They remained weird experiments in steel, technically interesting but tactically useless in the conflict that actually happened. Type 95. This light tank was fine against poorly equipped enemies early on. A small 37mm gun, thin but sufficient armor, and decent mobility for jungle and rough terrain. Once it met well-armed Allied forces, its weaknesses became lethal. Riveted plates, minimal protection, and cramped internals turned it into an easy kill for anti-tank guns, heavy machine guns, and even some infantry weapons. In open battle, it could barely scratch newer enemy tanks while being blown apart in return. Crews often fought bravely, but the design offered them little chance to survive. By the later stages of the Pacific War, it was effectively a mobile mass grave on tracks, M3 Lee. This medium was a rush solution. The Army needed a gun with enough punch against enemy armor before proper turrets were ready, so the main cannon went into a right-side hull sponson with a smaller turret gun on top. The result was a very tall vehicle with a limited traverse primary weapon that forced the whole hull to turn for many shots. In desert conditions, it provided valuable firepower early on against older German and Italian machines, but its towering profile and awkward layout became liabilities as opponents improved. Crews had to expose a massive target whenever they wanted to bring the main gun to bear. Once better mediums arrived, it rapidly Crusader. This cruiser was meant to be the fast desert sword of British armor, racing across open ground to outflank and overwhelm the enemy. On paper, it had speed and a low profile. In the sand, its unreliable engine and cooling systems betrayed it. Breakdowns on long marches were common, thinning out units before combat even began. Protection and gunpowder aged badly as German armor and guns improved, leaving many crews in fragile hulls facing stronger opponents. While it could be effective under perfect conditions and careful maintenance, the harsh reality of North Africa exposed it as a fragile racer in a war that demanded rugged workhorses, T-60. This small Soviet light tank was born out of crisis. Industry needed something quick and simple when heavier designs were in short supply. Built on a light chassis with thin armor and a low-caliber gun, it could escort columns, scout, and provide basic fire support. Against real enemy armor and anti-tank weaponry, however, it was badly outmatched. Almost any serious hit could penetrate, and its own gun struggled against even medium tanks. Crews operated in cramped, noisy conditions with minimal protection, aware that they were in a stopgap rather than a real fighting equal. It filled a necessary hole in 1941 to 1942, but remains one of the weakest armored solutions actually thrown into the front line. Thanks for staying through this parade of steel disasters and dead ends. If you want more deep dives into the machines that failed as hard as they tried, hit like and subscribe. It shows that there's interest in the darker side of military engineering. On screen now is a teaser for the next video. Drop your guess about its theme,